The class eraser went missing, and she found it in the blink of an eye. And when questioned, Lucy's face turned as red as her hair. I asked everyone in the class and followed the clues to the last person who had it. She pointed to Chase Simpson, which was Chase. She was throwing it at the Marcus Calvin, twisting around in my chair. I aimed to get Ben's attention, but he was already looking at me, chin resting on his fist, eyes ignited with excitement. The two of us cornered Lucy after class, and when she mentioned for us to get back, I dragged Ben, who was a little too excited, to my side. Lucy looked mildly horrified when I say dangerous case, as though her expression pricked with intrigue. She agreed, her gaze lingering on Ben as her cheeks were smoldering. Our last two members were a surprise. Violet Evergreen was what you would call popular on the middle school hierarchy, not just because her mother was the mayor, but because Violet could get away with murder. The girl refused to wear the school uniform, coloring a single purple streak in her hair to cement herself as the it girl. She was also one of the girls who started the Bloody Ben rumor. Ben, Lucy, and I were sitting on the grass during recess, trying to come up with a name for our detective service, when Violet came storming over, hands planted on her hips. She was copying how her mother held herself during town meetings. "What are you doing?" Violet demanded. Lucy opened her mouth to answer, while Ben was nudging her to shut up. "Making a mystery gang," I told her. "Why?" Violet inclined her head. "Oh." She folded her arms. "Well, can I join?" Ben stood up, stepping in front of the girl. Violet didn't move, stubbornly standing her ground. "Sure." Ben flashed a grin that didn't quite reach his eyes. He stepped closer to her, his smile widening. "If you can pass the test." Violet's lip curled. She took a single step back. "What kind of test?" Ben nodded to me. "Meet us at the swimming pool at 8 p.m. To my surprise, Violet nodded. "Do I need to bring anything?" I said no. 8 p.m. the four of us met outside the local swimming pool. Violet was already on the other side of the fence, waving. "Hey guys." I noticed Ben's expression, his eyes darkening. His lips were curling. Still though, he maintained positivity, vaulting over the fence. "You made it." I followed him, helping Lucy, who was immediately freaking out. I didn't blame her. The pool looked cold and dark, a hollow oblivion carved into the ground. Ben and Violet stood on the edge, the two of them shoulder to shoulder. Violet Evergreen was braver than I thought, standing with her arms at her sides. Violet's hands clenched into fists. "What's the test?" Violet said, her gaze glued to bleeding black depths. "I don't know," Ben murmured, his voice teetering on a giggle. He leaned forward, arms spread out. "I didn't think you'd actually come meet us." Violet immediately hummed, stretching out her leg, teasing it across the surface. And then she said, "Was that the test?" The boy leaned back. I caught the glint of a grin under the floodlights. Nah. Before I know what was happening, she shoved Violet into the pool. The girl didn't scream or shriek. She just hit the surface, sinking into pitch dark nothing. "Sink or swim," Ben said in a low murmur. When Violet's head bobbed underwater, I could see her shadow under the surface, imagining the freezing cold depths pulling her down. "Drown, and you cannot join us." It was so quiet. Suddenly, the three of us staring into rippling water. A minute passed and my tummy started to twist. "Fuck!" Ben's expression stayed stoic. I wasn't expecting him to say a bad word. He cocked his head. I thought she could swim. I had him holding in a cry. "You need to get our parents." But he didn't listen to me. Taking a single step and dropping into the pool, I fell to my knees, scanning the water. Lucy was literally crying. "Are they dead?" she shrieked. "Ah." I was watching two shadows lingering under the water. Violet broke through. I expected her to be crying, but her expression was unwavering. She was silent. I thought the splashing underneath her was her legs trying and struggling to tread water. Before Lucy shoved me hard. "Panda, what do we do?" Looking closer, Violet was perfectly still, her gaze on the sky, while she shoved Ben under the water, drowning him. Violet's eyes sparkled, and somehow I know that she belonged in my gang. Her gaze found mine, glinting with that darkness. That poisonous streak I found myself drowned to. It was a starving, insatiable need to understand a fractured mind. Just know your enemy. Do you want to see if Ben is a witch? Violet asked me, her tone something else entirely. This girl didn't make sense, using barely her finger to drown Ben Callis. I know she was wrong. I knew there was something loose, something unlocked and unbridled and drowning inside her mind and heart. But I want more of her. I want Violet Evergreen and my detective gang. I think this is why I stood there, frozen. When the thrashing stopped, Ben broke through. He wasn't coughing or spluttering. His head inclined. He did not drown. Violet climbed out of the pool, offering her hand, and you're not a witch. He declined her hand, taking the steps instead. I asked Violet in a shaky voice. I was trembling with terror, but I was excited, exhilarated. Violet, will you join my gang? She did not answer me until we were sharing hot cocoa in my house. I told Mom we fell in the pool, and she believed me. I literally should have told her that my friends were sociopaths and I was kind of maybe in love. Violet sipped her cocoa, nodding with a smile I did not recognize. Violet never smiled at school. Well, she did, but it was always the prick of a cruel smirk. I don't think her smiles was genuine, but she was definitely enjoying herself. Our last member came to us instead of finding him. Jules Howell, a straggly brunette, pushed his way in front of me in the lunch line. I didn't really know the kid. He used to always sit at the back of the classroom and sleep through most classes. I did like his accent though. Jules had moved from Melbourne in the second grade. He didn't talk much, but when he did, I found myself enveloped in his voice, which sounded like water to me, a bleeding cadence to his tongue. Jules piled his plate with fries, smiling wildly at the lunch ladies. I saw you last night, he murmured through that perfectly molded grin. Saw me where? At the pool, Jules said. You bloody Ben, Violet Evergreen, and that Lucy girl, you were doing a suicide pact. That is not what we were doing, okay? I said. And what's a suicide pact? When you kill yourself together. Jules said. I saw it in a scary movie my mom was watching. I grabbed a fork. We weren't doing that. His eyes were strange when I took the time to notice them. The excited gleam had fizzled out. Joel's hands tightened around his tray. Then, what were you doing? I did not reply. Making my way over to our usual table, Ben was already waving me over. Violet and Lucy holding up the flyers we were making. The Red Blood Detectives. Do you need our help? We can find or solve anything. Contact us on the number below. We take donations. When I bothered turning around, Jules was lost in the crowd of kids. We were in our first official case, searching for Mr. Lake's missing mail, when Jules appeared seemingly out of nowhere, and with him, a golden retriever puppy he introduced as Arlo. It took the dog jumping up at them for Violet and Ben to find their real smiles, their real selves, slowly seeping through these facades they had built around themselves. Then Ben dropped to a crouch, ruffling the dog's ears, his smile faint. It was a good boy, he chuckled. Arlo did not move at all, but his tail was wagging and his eyes were bright. Then Ben motioned the dog towards him, but Arlo stayed put. Jules joined us quietly. I don't remember asking him or even him asking me. He just became part of us, side by side with Arlo. We soon came to quickly realize that our town was boring. There were no monsters or thieves or soul-sucking demons. No criminals or serial killers. Not even one missing person. However, we did get calls about cats that are missing. I turned 11 years old, patiently waiting for a murder or a kid going missing. But there was nothing. All we did was chase cats and the occasional dog. Maybe a buggy if we were lucky. 12 years old, our detective club became a joke. The five of us, and Arlo hiding under the table, were trying to pinpoint Mr. Tracy's lost hamster when the three girls came over, dumping their soda all over us. We watched crime shows for inspiration on catching killers. Ben's favorite crime was one that happened in the 80s in our town. Then two girls were murdered. Their intestines were literally stuffed into envelopes and mailed to family members. That's what we should be solving, he told me one night, not missing cats. 13 years old, We lay in our Violet's backyard under the cruel glare of the summer sun. We called it working and didn't like to admit it was hanging out, or that we were even friends. However, that didn't stop us growing closer. Even if it wasn't quite the way I'd expected, I proposed a plan, standing up, wobbling a little off balance. "I've got it," I said, my voice kinda slurry from Violet's special summer cocktail, which was just random alcoholic beverages we found, thrown into a blender and diluted with water. The town wasn't taking us seriously, so we were going to make our own mysteries. I ordered a full-scale assault on our small town, one that he could not ignore, been stamped on Mr. Manson's flowers, and Lucy threw mud pies at people's cars. Jules trashed the high school gym, and Violet and I spray-painted threats and warning on every store window. Now, this did cause panic, but also an official curfew. Then 30 minutes before the curfew, we met in our usual spot deep in the forest near the lake. Ben literally yelled at me when I was 3 minutes late. He was real passionate about finding a real mystery. "You're late." Ben was sitting on a rock waving a stick in Arlo's face. The dog still wasn't going near him, whining softly. I took my place muttering an apology. I had to lie to my mother. Violet sitting with her legs crossed, idly digging her manicure into the dirt, suggested we buy mannequins and masquerade them as dead bodies, hanging them from the school rafters. And then when it came to Lucy, who had slowly grown out of her shell, becoming a lot more outspoken, nudged her. "That's a stupid idea." The girl groaned, leaning into her. You're right. You're right." Jules was the only energetic one standing on the tire swing. He jumped down, definitely twisting his ankle, but his smile only widened, kind of like he enjoyed being in pain. "Why don't we pretend to be kidnapped?" he said, pulling the hood of his sweatshirt over, blondish curls growing out. Jules did a dramatic spin, his eyes shining. "We can go missing for like a week, and then our parents are really scared. We can turn up and tell them we escaped a kidnapping." His lips split into a grin. "And then we solve our own kidnapping." Ben awkwardly patted Arlo's head, only for the dog to pull away with a snort. "I like it," he murmured. "I am in." Joel's idea was absolutely stupid, but it was worth a shot. To be continued.